Hey, welcome to another episode of Force Fridays. Today we're going to talk about one of the new improvements to the new update 3.0.5, which is that you're supposed to be able to export from Ableton directly into the Force. Now, this sounds like it's going to be amazing. However, if there's anything I've learned from working with Akai, it's that they tend to be really good at promising these things, and then when you actually get into it, you find out that it's really not as it was made to appear. So I'm going to be really interested to see how this actually works. So I'm going to do this test in three parts. Part one is I'm going to build a session in Ableton that's going to have all the parts in it that I want to test and how they transfer to the Force. Then we're going to actually transfer to the Force, open it up and compare them back and forth. And then part three is we're going to play the telephone game, and then we're going to export the Force session as an Ableton project, take it back into Ableton, and see what the heck happens at that point. Okay, here we are in Ableton. So I think right off the bat, I definitely want to test out the different drum racks, maybe just put in a couple samples. Let's pull in another drum rack because what I really want to test is how it works for velocity scaling, meaning that I could have several different notes on a pad, and the harder I hit it, changes which samples play. So I'm going to put a sampler down here that's blank, open up these zones, pull it in here, and make the soft one go from 0 to 99, and then the other one from 100 to 127. All right, so there's the velocity scaling. What I'm going to also do is do another test. Let's go to the filter, and I'm going to turn the velocity scaling up for this so that the softer that you hit it, the more that the filter cuts on it, which is a great way of making things more expressive. I did a whole video on making more expressive drums. If you missed it before, click up here, you can watch it. So I'm going to turn that up all the way. What I'm also curious about is if I just take one of the drum racks that come stock with the packs that Ableton puts out and see what happens with those. So let's just grab a classic kit. Curious with this one because it has all these effects on it. I don't think that it's going to transfer the effects to the Force, but if it did, that would be awesome. Let's take this beat and put it over here. Just give us something to play with. These are with simpler files, so they don't have any layers on this one. Let's choose one that does have layers. I know that the session drums is amazing. Cop style, I don't even know what that means. Okay, so for this new set here, this is going to be kind of ridiculous because that's just all the kick levels. So you're talking about how many samples is that? Just for the kick based upon how hard you hit it. So I don't think it's going to translate that, but what the hell? We'll give it a little experiment. The other thing that I saw happening was some of the instruments that it was pulling across. I'll just grab the sampler one first because that happened to be up here. And let's put a little melody line in here. I have no idea what these notes are. That's actually kind of cool, considering I just randomly picked notes. All right, let's find a couple different other instruments. I am now curious about the wavetable, abominable bass. All right, let's copy that amazing random bass. All right, what else should we pick? How about the operator? See what happens with that. That's a good sound. Okay, what else should we do? Let's do analog and see what happens with that. So I don't even know what it's going to do with all these different things here. Let me just take this analog thing and drag it up here to create a double track without all of that extra fancy stuff on there. Do we do simpler? No. These two, they sound just the sample. We'll see how that goes. Now let's add some samples just to like a drum loop or something like that. test out kind of the sampler method. I'm going to freeze this track, drag it over here, solo this, make sure it's the right one. So now what I'm going to do is take this and splice it to a new MIDI track. Okay, let's see what happens with that. I'm going to unfreeze this track. Well, actually, it might be kind of interesting to see what happens if I were to duplicate it and then freeze one of them and see what happens in that situation. Okay, so we got a pretty good experiment going on right here. Okay, saved it to my SD card. And now I just got to plug that into the Force and see what happens. All right, I'm back here at the Force and I have transferred the file to this SD drive. I'm going to stick it in here. All right, let's see what happens when we load this up. Kick and snare, all very straightforward. How about track number 2? Track number 2 was where we did a layers test. Well, let's look at the samples, the velocity layers. 0 to 99 was the quieter one, and then 100 to 127 was the other volume. I definitely hear the layers there, but what I don't hear is the filter. The filter for velocity didn't come through. That's kind of disappointing because that would be really nice to be able to build drum racks in Ableton and do some more advanced nuances and have that automatically transfer into the Force. But it appears that's not going to be the case. All right, so now we had this like classic one here. If we go back to looking at Ableton, this one had a bunch of effects on it, but it was pretty straightforward with regard to samples. Let's see if any index effects were transferred. No. In fact, it's pretty clear that for any of these tracks, no effects transfer. I suppose it makes sense. Some of these wouldn't translate directly over. Probably too much to program, but you can, you know, desire things, right? So the old school kit, whoa, I don't even know what's going on there. What the hell? I don't even understand what happened to this. So if I go down an octave, doing whoa, so that got royally messed up. All right, let's go to the analog bass. If I click there, this one, I don't even understand what's going on with that. So this was the original sound. A lot shorter decay on there. It doesn't quite even sound like the same sound. And what is that? There was nothing like that in the sample. Whatever. Anyways, that's weird. Okay. This one, the abominable bass, nothing happened. The wavetable didn't transfer anything at all. It just came through as a MIDI file. It did import the MIDI, and it looks like the acid bass is the same thing. There's nothing on this one. Doesn't play at all. It's just a MIDI track. Okay, so what's left here? The deep in the dark, which was this complex file here, and that also came in as a MIDI track. No sound. Same thing with the analog. Well, which one did come across? Oh, it had to be a sampler, not analog ones. Doesn't work that way. Now, when I froze the track, it looks like it came through as audio. Okay, so it transferred the audio over, and that was just fine. Bass one here was a simpler file. Let's listen to how that one sounds. Let's see if that sounds similar when we solo that. And listen from here, from Ableton. The decay is really different than it is on the Force. Oh. this is kind of disappointing. So let's listen to here. What the hell? That one kind of got jacked up. Well, I see it all there. It looks basically the same as it does here. It just did not transfer in the tempo data because it's just playing it too slow. I don't even know what to say about that. All right, the last one is when we did the slices and essentially made a drum rack out of it like this. Okay, well that worked as expected. All right, well that's everything. Oh, that's kind of disappointing. All right, let's do one more thing. Let's play the telephone game. And I will export this as an Ableton live session and then open it back up in Ableton and see what the heck happens to that. All right, so let's save this whole project. We're going to save it as an Ableton live set. I'm going to be really interested to see if this messes things up even further. Okay, so now brought those other tracks in as MIDI tracks that didn't have anything on it. Drums and bass. Well, let's see what the... Okay, so definitely jacked up that drum and bass loop and sent it back all messed up. Look at that. It didn't transfer the MIDI. Oh, that's kind of a bummer. Just what the freak? All the kits got dissolved. So those came back in as just audio files. So it looks like you can transfer drum kits from Ableton to the Force, but not from the Force to Ableton. All right, so in conclusion, I guess that I would have to say that this doesn't work as good as I thought it was going to. First of all, any audio clips are going to be perfectly transferred. So I suppose if I'm going to take my Ableton live session and export it to the Force, I need to freeze all those tracks, get them down just to audio, and then bring them over here and play it like a performance. And I could see some value in that. I'm going to do a later video, I believe, to really test that out. This was kind of just a starter one. It does pull in some drum kits that you can play. That seems to work pretty good. You have some basic ones with a little bit of layering. It does that. Any other things like filters and whatnot, it doesn't do. And it seems to only pull in sounds from the sampler. And as we saw, it was disappointing in terms of how much it wasn't like the original one. So if you have something really unique in terms of a sound that you have in Ableton, it's not going to translate over here at all into sort of some MIDI notes. You're going to just have to translate the audio. And that is disappointing. It doesn't mean that there isn't value in preparing things in Ableton and moving them to the Force, but it seems like you really have to keep that stuff in mind. Anyways, that's it for today's Force Friday episode. Hope this has been useful for you as you're trying to dig in through this stuff. As I've said before, if you don't want to miss out on the series, be sure that you Where's the subscribe button? Be sure that you hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next week.